Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Condé Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're taping here at the Hollywood Museum in the historic Max Factor building on Highland Avenue in the heart of Hollywood. And our guests are actress Kelley Dorney and actor Joey Halter. Actress, singer Kelley Dorney was born and raised in Plano, Texas. She graduated summa cum laude from Emerson College in the Boston area, where she received her BFA in musical theater. Right out of school, Disney hired her to go on their cruise ship there.
The Disney Magic.
I know, it was so great. I'm not even going to read the rest of what this is about, because how does someone coming out of Emerson right away go into something like that?
It was a whirlwind, I have to say. I was literally the day I graduated. I got a call, of course, after all the ceremonies were done and you'd received a million questions asking, so what are you going to do now that you've graduated? And you've got this whole long diatribe of like, well, I'm going to move to New York and I'm going to try this. We'll just see how it goes. And everybody's gone and I've had my lunch with my parents and I go back to my dorm room and I get a call on my cell saying that I'd been hired by Disney Cruise Line. And
how did they come and interview? What did they do? Did they seek you out?
They had auditions outside of Boston just right before I graduated, and myself and a good friend of mine that was in the program, two of us got on a train and went out to outside Boston and auditioned. And
where would they go?
They hold them all over. They hold them in New York. They hold them in Los Angeles. They were here not too long ago auditioning, but they were in. It was a small town outside of.
Is that right?
It wasn't even in Boston proper. And funny story about my audition. It was a rainy day in Boston in the spring, of course, and the train had stopped at the station.
So it's the T line you're on. It's not.
No, it was actually on the Amtrak
Oh, it was really the train.
Yeah, it was the train. Like it was not in Boston proper. No,
not the T.
If I could have taken the T, I would have. No, we were out of South Station. We went.
Oh, you were.
Yeah, to wherever we were going, and the train had stopped, and I was getting all of our stuff, our bags, our Dunkin' Donuts, because it's Boston, and we get to the middle of the train to get off, and it's moving. I was like, oh, wait, let's hold off until it slows to a stop. But I realized it was actually picking up speed. So I just saw, like, Disney flash before my eyes, and I was like, go! And she jumped, and then I jumped, and, like,
You just didn't even get off in time?
We jumped off of a moving train for our Disney Cruise Line audition. And I, like, destroyed my elbow. She had like a giant cut on her knee.
What happened? It was just, you just didn't get off in time?
We didn't get off in time, and instead of waiting for the next stop, we jumped from the moving train.
So do they actually go to different schools and scout, or do they just audition?
They just audition.
So you have to find them.
Yeah, they advertise for it very well.
And so here you are, right out of Emerson. You're supposed to be going to New York and do some off-Broadway stuff, right?
Sure, yeah. Of course I was. That's exactly where I was headed.
Look for something, right? And then you get this job, and what did you play?
I was a main stage performer,
which is the best, right?
Which is it's the elite on the ship, which is very nice.
Center stage.
And so I got to play a multitude of characters, which was really nice. I was very close friends with Snow White and close friends with Cinderella as well, and that was on the first contract.
I see. So I know you've talked about contracts with them. And how long does that contract run?
Contracts can run anywhere between 8 and 10 months, maybe even as little as 6. We start out with 2 months of rehearsal in Toronto, and then we do 6 to 8 months actually on board the ship. So my contracts were actually quite long. I was on board for 8 months.
You were actually on. Do you dock and go in?
Oh,
and
yeah.
out? And where does that magic? What was it called?
The Disney Magic.
Disney
When I
Magic.
was on it, that was a long time ago. It was alternating between Eastern and Western Caribbean cruises. So I went to Key West, Cozumel, Grand Cayman, Disney's private island, Castaway Cay.
And how many people come to your main stage performance?
The theater holds around 1,000.
It does?
Yeah, yeah. It's probably one of the nicest theaters I've ever
And for a
worked in.
high school person right on stage? I mean, not a high school, a college.
Yeah.
Same thing because,
Oh.
I mean, it's 4 years later, right?
4 years later, that I was up there learning about pyro and lifts and, learning how... I've learned so much working for that company. So
I think you have a real love for that.
I do. I grew up with Disney in my life and going to Disney World for vacations with the family. And
When you were in Texas, were you in theater? Were you in
I
plays?
was. Yeah, I did theater in my high school, from middle school, high school, senior high. I also did something called competitive speech, which is a forensics. They have speech and debate.
So it was all in high school?
It was all in
and-
high school.
I see.
So I competed on the speech team, went to nationals, went to state, and acted. That was really what started to hone my acting skills. And
I see.
was musical very early on.
And while you were on main stage, and while you were playing, was it Cinderella, you met your prince?
I did.
This is a story.
I became very good friends with my Prince Charming, and then it became a real life fairy tale. So we've been married now for over 7.5 years.
Oh, was that long ago?
Yeah.
Oh, well, he went to London and you went with him.
I did, yeah. Shortly after we moved I moved and joined him in New York, he was cast in a recording group, 4 guys, very much like Il Divo. They sang musical theater songs. It was called Teatro, and it was based out of London. And literally the day after, it happens in my life, the day of or the day after is a common theme. The day after our wedding, I moved to London with him. And
That's so great. And you were there for how long?
almost 2 years.
That was fantastic, too. Did you work there?
I did. I had some wonderful opportunities there. I did a workshop of Love Never Dies, which is the Phantom of the Opera sequel.
My favorite.
It's such a fantastic
It
show.
never did very well, did it? Love Never Dies.
No, it didn't. It has some really stunning music, actually, and I'm lucky enough to have worked on the concept album and the actual album you can purchase on iTunes. And just being in a room with incredible theater greats like Jerry Mitchell and Jack O'Brien and Sir Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yes, he gave me a line reading, actually.
Oh, that's so great. He's so brilliant.
Yes.
I think that's just like a once in a lifetime. I think he's absolutely brilliant.
Oh, yeah.
Sir Andrew, right?
Yes.
Sir Andrew. So then you came back to L.A.
I actually went to New Jersey first.
Oh, you went to New Jersey.
That's where I was living for a while. And
that was like working in New York, right? Back and forth?
Oh, yeah. I had a beautiful apartment that my husband still lives in. We're doing the long distance, coast to coast, yeah.
Oh, dear.
He's a fantastic actor, so he's doing really well out there. And our apartment looks out onto a park that looks out at the city skyline. So
that's so beautiful from the New Jersey side. Okay, so you're here.
Now I'm here.
And you're doing right. I want to make sure we get to Adam and Eve and Steve.
Yes.
Because we've had such a nice background with you. And so Adam and Eve and Steve is the newest play you're in.
Yes.
And you're singing.
I do. It's a brand new musical. Book lyrics are written by Chandler Warren, and the music is written by the incomparable Wayne Moore. And the two of them together have created this really fun, silly, but still heartfelt musical about Adam and Eve, a very common story.
Common.
And
you're Eve?
I am Eve. I'm the only girl in the cast.
Oh, how lucky. And so you have
surrounded
Adam
by
and Steve.
men, you know, what can you say?
Except that Adam and Steve probably like each other.
They do.
They don't like you.
Well, it's a fun twist to it. The devil comes in and he decides to, you know, do a little mischief, and he creates Steve before Eve is created, and Adam, of course, finds.
He creates Steve first.
Well, he puts a little spell on
I
it.
see.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
I
so
see.
Adam is in love with this person for who he is. He's a companion. He's his friend.
Right.
And then Eve shows up, and he does love her too for different reasons, and it's whether or not.
And do you sing to each other?
We do. Yes.
And do you dance too?
There is some dancing. There's a really fun vaudeville number.
So Adam, who's Adam?
Adam is a newcomer. He is Michael, I'm going to say it so wrong, Spaziani.
And
Totally bastardized the beautiful Italian language. And
Steve?
he's new to LA. He's wonderful. He just finished a run of Violet at the El Portal. And then
yes, that was quite good.
It was very good, yes. So he's fantastic. And then my good friend Hotepe Lockwood, I call him JP. I met him doing the LA's Next Great Stage Star competition.
Oh, and you
at
were
the Federal.
in that, and you came in second?
I came in second, and JP came in third. So
so you're together.
we're together again.
So that was the Next Stop Star or Next
LA's Next Great Stage Star.
Stage Star, right?
Yeah. So and I couldn't
And
be
was that
happier.
just by coincidence?
That
you
he
got
ended
together?
up doing this.
Yeah.
He actually, Ronnie came to the finale of the competition and saw JP. And when he was trying to figure out this cast, he said, "What about that guy that was in the competition? What's his name?"
That
guy. Bring him in. And JP he's a trooper. He lives in Orange County without a car.
Oh, wow.
And he comes up for rehearsals, for the shows. He's a trooper.
Good for him.
Yeah, he's
and good for you.
fantastic talent.
You're having like so much fun out
I
here.
am. Oh my gosh, it's the best.
I think you're having a lot of fun everywhere. You're going to do La Mirada coming up in the fall.
I'm going to do First Date the musical there.
What musical
excited.
is that? Oh, it's a new musical.
It's a 90-minute one-act musical. Very fun. Very fun. 7 people on stage doing multiple characters. Right up my alley.
Are you? Is it hard to learn new music? Because the other things, like the Disney stuff, you've heard the music before, right?
Right. There were 2 new musicals on the ship, Twice Charmed, which I did, and Toy Story,
new?
The musical, were both new. But I have a musical background. I played piano as a kid. I read music. I love learning new music. So this is...
You're so positive.
I know.
I'm so happy. I love it. This is like a very up thing today. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
So glad you came.
Thank you.
Bye, Kelley. And watch for actor Joey Halter, who will be on next. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're here at the Hollywood Museum on Highland Avenue, and we're back to talk with actor, writer, producer, musician Joey Halter, who hails from Ohio. Now, these are his words. He had a happy childhood with a brother, Matt, and not divorced parents, living in the suburbs, and then he moved to Chicago, and then to Colorado, then to LA, and I think you can tell this story much better than I can. So let's start with the acid trip in high school.
I ate a lot of acid in high school. I really don't do too many drugs anymore, or nor did I for the rest of my life, but I liked eating LSD in high school. It just kind of came into my life. There was somebody in Jackson Township in Canton, Ohio that was pressing a lot of black pyramid acid. I don't know.
Where did they come from? In Canton?
I don't know.
I hate to be so dumb about it.
I blame the Grateful Dead.
Is that?
I think that's what happened. There's kids on tour in the 90s, and they would come back, and I don't know.
And were you a group like that? Were you
There was a group
of acid heads?
Well, the funny thing is there was a group of like 4 or 5 of us that used to do that, and it's funny because out of all my friends from that time, we still have a bond. All of those people that we did that. It's, I mean, people talk about the strange things that happen when you do that, but sometimes, I think it definitely changes your perception of the world in a way. It just
Good
helps
or bad?
I think good for me. I never had any bad experiences. It kind of gave me some different color and things that I hadn't seen before. Dimension, I guess. I don't know.
So I'm going to go through this. You were traveling around with your leather jacket, not caring, and
Well, I wore a leather jacket every day in high school, kind of as a badge, and I feel like I kind of just felt obligated to wear it after a while, and then I kept wearing it, and then people probably remember me as some like Fonzie jackass of sorts.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I don't know. It was a thing I was into because I really liked the Ramones. Sometimes in high school you don't really know why you do the things you do. You just do them. And
So it was the Ramones influence.
I think so. I was really into punk rock music of sorts, and I kind of just did that. I really tried hard to exude a certain image of myself, and then, after a while you grow up and realize you don't have to. And it's by trying to stand out, you end up like caging yourself in sometimes.
So how far is Canton from Chicago?
Chicago, it's about 4.5 hours.
So did you ride your bike there?
Yeah.
From Canton to Chicago, you rode a bike?
No, I didn't ride my bike.
But
I'm
you
being
rode your bike
facetious.
around Chicago, you said.
Yeah, I realized when I was younger I rode my bicycle a lot, like most kids, but then when I got older, I started to realize how much I missed riding my bike. In Chicago, you could ride your bike everywhere because they had an L train that would take you everywhere, so I would, with a combination of the train and my bicycle, I would just ride my bicycle and listen to my headphones, and I kind of like started watching people and realized how interesting it was to just ride around and look in people's windows, and really not in a perverse way at all, but just kind of interesting to see people like going to the zoo or something, I found it very interesting to do that. And you have like a soundtrack with your headphones, and it's like a movie. You kind of like get into a different mode of living.
What else were you doing in Chicago?
Well, I worked. I took a couple classes at a city college. It was actually like I went to school and I took some classes in Akron, Ohio, just because, I don't know, my folks offered to pay for some classes, and I didn't have anything better to do at the time, so I took them. But I actually took better classes for $800 for a whole semester at the city college, at Harold Washington College in Chicago. It was like an inner city college, and I learned a lot of I took a history class from somebody that gave a really good history lesson. I took a music class. I took like African history, Japanese history, and
I can see all this background because we're leading up to this one-person play that you're doing. But I can see where all of this is your material. You in Chicago, is this where you got the calling about Dennis Hopper?
No, I don't know.
Where'd you get this Dennis Hopper calling?
I don't know. I would always pay lots of attention to my dreams. I always kept like dream journals for a long time.
Did?
Just because I feel like if you write down, say one day you wake up and you remember, like I dreamed of a big beige box, and that's all you can remember. And the next day you remember lots of other things, like the box had these colors. I don't know, it's a different dream, but I could write down a sentence. Then if I wrote it down the next day, I could remember a whole paragraph. And then I got to the point where I could remember like 10 pages of a whole dream.
So journals.
Right.
Yeah,
And then I started having like lucid dreams at some point. I think it's because you pay so much attention to it. You know what lucid dreams are, Joan?
No.
It's like where you can wake up in your dream and you look around, all of a sudden you realize you're dreaming.
Yeah.
It's the most fantastic experience you could ever have.
But don't you feel like you're in your dream? You know you're in a dream, but you feel like you're a lot awake in there, right?
It's like magic, because you realize the first time I had a lucid dream, I was in an antique warehouse, and I love antiques. There's nothing against antiques.
That was your dream.
But I woke up in the dream and realized I was dreaming, so I started smashing everything in the antique warehouse, and I don't know why I would have done that, but it was like.
So does it happen in your dream that you're smashing it? You remember that you're smashing it?
No, you're awake there. Like all of a sudden, like you're in a dream, right? And then all of a sudden you realize it's a dream, and then you realize you have the freedom to do whatever you want.
Yeah, but so you're really awake?
Yeah, you're really awake, and you're really asleep.
You're really asleep.
Right, you're asleep.
Oh, good. You got me really confused.
But Dennis Hopper, that's what we were talking about.
Tell me, yeah. Because Dennis was a great friend. Tell me about Dennis, yeah.
I don't know. I just remember I had dreams about, and I think it's probably just something to do with like subconscious of childhood. Like I had a lot of dreams about Kurt Cobain and Dennis Hopper, because I think the Kurt Cobain thing was just because when that hell happened, when that man killed himself, I was like 14 years old, and I had just fallen in love, and so it was dealing with like love and death at the same time, and it like fused something into my psyche.
And so was he.
Yeah.
He was too.
Totally. But then the Dennis Hopper thing, I don't know. I remember having all these dreams about him all the time for a couple years.
Were you here, or where were you?
In Colorado, mostly.
You were in Colorado. So from Chicago, you went to Colorado. We didn't cover Colorado.
Okay.
Were you working there, going to school?
Yeah, I actually, the last thing I was doing in Chicago was I delivered sushi for like I don't know, like 6 months. It was great. There was so many. See, delivering pizza is one thing, but you deliver sushi, people actually tip really well. So I'd managed to save up quite a bit of money.
Oh, and then
my
you
rent
got-
was like $200 a month there, and I was living in a warehouse. And then, Christ, I don't know. I guess, I saved up a bunch of money. So the first thing I did when I moved to Colorado is I lived in Boulder for a little bit, and all I had to do was basically just wander around the woods. Like because I saved up all this money. My rent was like $300 there, so I didn't really have to do much except I didn't have to work for a while. So it gave me the freedom to explore lucid dreaming.
And what about your rock and roll band?
Well, I played in a rock and roll band in Los Angeles. I played in a couple in Akron, but I played enough steady
So when you
one
got
here.
to L.A., did you look for Dennis Hopper?
You know, I kind of forgotten about it after I got here. It was just one of those things where he was like standing in this old warehouse. I remember this dream specifically, and there was like a river running through. It was like a warehouse, old abandoned warehouse like you'd find in like Pittsburgh, like the Rust Belt part of the country, kind of where I grew up. And there was a river running through the middle of the warehouse, and there was whales swimming in the river, right? These river whales of sorts. I don't know what they were doing there. I think they were like day glow colors, but yeah. And then Dennis Hopper was standing there, and I remember him being like, just talking about some weird life philosophy. I just remember him rambling, and I don't really remember much of what he said, but I remember him talking about, like, you know, on dreams sometimes you just know somebody tells you something, and you don't really remember what they say.
But this is funny because Dennis Hopper used to have all those dreams. He went out into the desert, and he was like hallucinating and doing all that stuff. In fact, one time he told me he went into the desert, and it was like so vivid, and he thought he was just going to stay there and die. And you're having dreams about him, and he was telling me about the dreams he was having. Woo.
About me, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe
he's
you
like
were
some
in
weird
him.
guy from Ohio.
I
He's just sitting
know.
there, and I don't know what the hell he's talking
Who
about.
knows?
He's telling me all God
But
knows
all
what.
these things have to be in your one-man show.
Some
that
of
is
them.
at Highways, and
Right.
it's called Apocalyptic.
Exodus scenarios. It's
Yeah.
about people struggling to get out of their bodies, kind of.
Yeah, well, now I can understand a little bit more about the play because you've been talking enough about how you've been getting out of your bodies,
Right.
out of your body, and how you can get into that. But first of all, tell me what the first title was. One of these weird wooden...
One of those weird wooden Russian dolls that fits inside of itself and inside of itself ad infinitum. I think they're called like... Oh, Christ.
I don't know what they're
I can't remember what
called.
they're called, but whatever the title was, it wasn't as appealing. It didn't sound
wasn't
right.
that... Oh, you mean
No,
the name of
like
the
the
doll?
name of the
was
dolls.
it?
I was like, I don't like that name, but I like the
got it.
idea of
Okay.
it. You know, I just wanted to like somewhere put that concept of that in there because that's kind of what it is. It's like snake shedding its skin ad infinitum, where it's like because each character is like a more evolved version of the first character. The first character in this one-man show, Apocalyptic Exodus Scenarios, I like to call it. He's like Charlie Chaplin in hell, essentially.
And who is he?
He's just. What do you mean?
Who's the character?
His
What's
name
his-
is Charlie Chuck.
Oh,
he's
yeah,
like a
it's Charlie.
caricature of Charlie
Okay.
Chaplin. But
Okay.
basically, he's in a room. It's like a Twilight Zone episode. And he's sitting in a room. He's trying to figure out how he got there. And he's just like, "Let me out of here." He's like, it's this whole thing where he's just like questioning God, but he calls God, "God damn it." He's like, "God damn it, let me out of here." And it's this whole. But anyways, the first guy is like stuck in this box, and it evolves into a character that has a broader perspective. So it's like
you're
everyone,
the first guy,
Yeah.
Chuck. What
Chuck.
are you wearing? A hat, probably.
I look like Charlie. Well, no, actually, on stage, he's wearing like boxer shorts, and he's kind of like crawling up on the floor in the fetal position because he's having a breakdown.
And then where do you go from there? How do you change into your next character?
Well, there's a lot to do with lighting in this thing. So it's like every character is kind of surrounded by a different color of light. Like the first guy, he's very angry and confused, so it's all red. And the last guy, who's an alien, has a very broad perspective, and it doesn't see things inside his own world. It's all black lit, like ultraviolet light. So it takes you through the spectrum. It starts out kind of like bleak, but it's still very comedic. It doesn't.
It is a comedy, right?
Yeah, it's comedy, but it's very. I like to call it existential comedy.
It's pretty
a lot
deep.
of like.
Because
Yeah.
I think it's like talking about all the things you've been thinking about and what you've been talking to us about today.
Yeah.
Tell me about this
Railroad Bill.
Railroad Bill. What is that?
Railroad Bill.
Show?
Yeah, it's the railroadbillshow.com. It's a website where I have like all these characters on.
Oh, so that's where you write for the web. You have a web series. Is that
Yeah,
a web series?
more or less. I mean, nobody really seems to watch it yet.
I was going to ask you about web series.
Yeah.
They're very prevalent, right?
There's a lot of them, yeah. Sometimes, I mean, there's so many of them out there that
And how do you do it?
Well, I film it I edit it and film it all myself. You know, I actually film a lot of it just on my iPhone. I set it up on a tripod and like I'll film myself. I'll hit start and go like act in it, and then I'll take it home and cut it all together.
So those are the kind of films you've been writing and
I'm doing
producing.
it out of frustration. When I first moved out here, I for a while tried to have a go at like going out on commercial auditions and stuff.
Oh yeah, did you get anything?
No, I got nothing. I always be like hipster number 2 or like hipster number 3 or some
Nick, come
random.
back, right?
Totally, and they're like, and they call me back like 3 times, and I just felt like I had no control over what I was doing. And I was like, I can make a reel. I can play all these crazy characters,
but you can
do
in
it
this
myself.
Railroad Bill show.
I do.
.com. Richard.
Richard's one of them.
Bogdan's
one of them.
Cinnamon. Because you wear these wigs. Who's Cinnamon?
Cinnamon is like a 14-year-old girl who wants her pony, more or less. It's just, a lot of them are just like random. That one doesn't really have much to say, but it's really funny. It's
and what does Richard do?
Richard, he's a kind of like, he kind of would look anal retentive from afar. He's very organized, but he talks about a lot of metaphysical properties, how like objects, there's this art called psychometry where it talks about objects actually have a life of their own, and you can tell a story through an object. And he's telling people to treat objects with just as much respect as you would treat a human being.
Right.
So he's cleaning his objects, and he's very aware of like his environment around him, and he's just by giving, he's basically casting spells. He's a magician.
Did you read a lot as a child?
Yeah, I actually read mostly in my 20s. I mean, as a
Did
child,
you older when you were older? Because
Yeah.
it seems like you've read so much and like you have a lot of knowledge from not only the street, like you said, but also a deeper knowledge.
Yeah, I study a lot of like, I'm really into philosophy and kind of just different things. There's a place in Los Feliz that I go to, I found here in Los Angeles, called the Philosophical Research Society. You ever heard of that place? It's amazing. This guy, Manly P. Hall, created this place. And it's actually not even open anymore. You can't even go there. It's like they use it, filming basically keeps it alive.
Oh.
But he traveled around the world and collected all these books, anything you could imagine, mostly philosophy, you know? And he just collected and put them all there. And so you could have gone in there for times and read. But he was the most amazing speaker and like, you know, influenced by a lot of that stuff.
So it's the kind of thought that you're experiencing.
Yeah, talking about things in life and like why, you know, just questioning who you are and like what you can do to better your existence, I think.
Well, before we leave, I know that this one-man show, apocalyptic
Exodus scenarios. It sounds, it's a mouthful of
the
pretentious.
scenarios, right, is struggles of change, battles of the soul. It's your storytelling from early on to rock and roll, and it's very interesting the way you say things change with the light and with, is there music too?
Yeah, the last part is, so all the videos, and it's basically a monologue and then a video which I made, a music video about the character that follows it. And then the last video is 20 minutes to a live score that I'm composing with my friend right now.
Oh,
it's
you
almost
are.
done. So yeah,
So
he
thanks,
was
Joey.
into it. Thank you, Joan.
Keep writing to JAQUINN1 at AOL.com. We'll see you next time.